guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I'll be continue reading X-Files Whirlwind. It was written by Charles Grant. So some of you might recognise this book when I read it on the first parts of the X-Files on chapter 1. So I'd like to thank you for subscribing to my channel. I just hit this bell notification, and thank you for make my creativity fully developed and keep myself improved. So I'll really appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. Okay, let's start reading the X-Files Whirlwind chapter 2. In the next few chapters, before Mulder and Scully make an investigation, hopefully you'll find out. The sun was white and hot, and there was no wind. Traffic in the nation's capital moved suddenly and loudly, while pedestrians, if they moved at all, glowered absently at the ground, praying that the next building they entered had its air conditioner working. And this prolonged July heat wave, that wasn't always the case. Tempers were shot to non-existent. Crimes of passion were up, and blame for extreme discomfort was seldom aimed at the weather. The office in the basement of J. Edgar Hoover building was, according to a walking monument to the struggle of the order over chaos. It was long, not quite narrow, and divided in half by the remains of a floor-to-ceiling glass partition, from which the door had long since been removed, and posters noticed were tacked and taped to the walls, and virtually every flat surface was covered by books, folds, and low stacks of paper. The lighting was dim, but it wasn't gloomy, and as usual, the air conditioning wasn't quite working. In the back room, two men and a woman stared at a series of red-tapped folds laying on a wrist-high shelf. Each was open to the stark black and white photo of a naked corpse, each corpse laying in the centre of what appears to be tiled bathroom floor. I'm telling you, it's a drive us nuts. The first man complained mildly. He was tall, solid, and a close-cropped red head. His brown suit fit too snugly for real comfort. His tie had been pulled away from his collar, and the collar bottom undone. The only concessions made to the barely moving air. He wiped off hand over the tanned cheek, wiped a palm of his leg. I mean, I know it is a signature, but I'll be damned if I can read it. Oh, put your glasses on, Stan, the woman muttered. She was near his height. Her face smooth, almost bland, with her thin lips and narrow eyes under dark brows. I like his clothes. Her cream lane suit could have been solid. That's no signature. It's just slashes, for crying out loud. You are the one who's driving us nuts. Stan Bono closed his eyes briefly as if in prayer. He said nothing. It's the bathroom, that's important. She continued, her voice bored. It was clear to a second man that she had been on this route 100 times. She pulled a tissue from her pocket and dabbed at her upper lip. It's easier to clean. It's too small for the victim to hide in or run around in and out. And Beth, Bono said rarely, I know if that's okay. I've got eyes I can see. The second man stood between them, hands easy on his hips. The jacket was dragged over the chair. In the other room, with his tie and the sleeves of the white shirt were rolled up back twice. His face unlined, and his age could have been anywhere from his late 20s to mid-30s, depend on how generous estimate was. Right now, he felt more like 50. A bickering had begun the moment the two agents had stormed into the office. The sniping had begun once the folders had been laid out. He took a step away from them, closer to the work shelf. They were both right. He had read the files several days ago at his section head's request, but he didn't tell the agents that their tempers were frayed. Enough already. He sniffed and rubbed a thoughtful finger aside his nose. All 5 victims, or at least a 5 the FBI was first far aware of, had been first attacked in the other rooms of their prospectors' homes and houses, not apartments, suburbs, not cities. All signs indicated little or no struggle after the initial assault, indicating knowledge of the attacker or near title surprise. They had been formed just enough for immobility, then dragged elsewhere. All were women, all in their early 20s, or had been murdered in their bathroom, strangled with neither an unfinished belt or rawhide strap, their bodies strapped to the wrist, and a razor taken to their chest, one slice each. None had been raped. Beth Morehouse groaned and plucked at her brows. God, doesn't the air conditioning work in here? How can you work this like this? It's like a schooner. Mulder shrugged unconcerned, then pushed a hand back through his hair. He checked each black and white in turn, his gaze flicking over them increasingly rapidly as though he were reading. Well, Brunel asked, "You got a magic trick for us? You've got a rabbit we can chase." Mulder held up the hand to hush him, then slid the pictures from a folder and laid them out in a line. A moment later, he switched a second and fourth. Mulder, Lilhouse said, "We haven't got all day. Either you've got something or you don't play games, okay?" Mulder straightened and almost smiled. "Beth, get me a sheet of paper, please." His left hand gestured vaguely toward the other room. It was his tone that moved her more than a request. Those who had worked with him before had heard it at least once. One of the older agents had said it was like the first bay of a hound they had finally found the scent. Did you argue with it? Just followed, and you made sure your gun was loaded. Bornell frowned. "What did I did? I don't see it." Mulder pushed the photographs closer together and pointed. "It's there, I think." Sudden doubt made him hesitate. I'm here. Newhouse thrust a blank sheet into his hand. She stared at the bodies then, and her voice quieted. I have been looking at those women for over a month. Mulder, I've seen them in my sleep. He knew exactly what she meant. In many ways, the black and white were as bad as looking at these bodies at his foe's self. Although the kill was gone, violent death wasn't. The only thing missing was a smell. It wouldn't take much effort to bring that up too. So, do we have? Bonnell asked. I'm not positive. It's kind of crazy. Newhouse laughed quietly. Well, this is the place for it, right? Mulder smiled. No offence had been meant. He had taken any. He knew his reputation in Bureau, and it no longer bothered him. He was a flake, a maverick, a little around the bend on the other side of the river. He worked as much from logic and reason as anyone else, but there were times when he didn't have to take every single step along the way. There were times when abrupt initiative leaps put him ahead of the game. Sometimes there was far enough to have it called magic, or more often than not spooky. He put it up with it because that reputation came in handy once in a while. Come on, Haldane, Bonnell complained. I'm right in here. Beth aimed, semi-painful, slapped at his arm. Will you shut up and let that man think? What think? All he has to do is here, Mulder said, slapping the paper onto the shelf, indecision gone. He grabbed the pen from a shirt pocket. Like this. The others leaned over his shoulders as pointed to the first picture. But she wasn't a first victim. The cut runs from just over her hand right breast to just under the left. In her next, it's reverse. So, Bonnell said. My Mulder pointed again. It could be a killer. Leans over and just cuts her. He straightened suddenly, and the others jumped back when his left hand demonstrated an angry, senseless slashing. It could be, but I don't think so. Not this time. He pointed at the third woman. This is clearly most of the letter, right? Maybe, if you combine it with the next one over. Newhouse answered, glancing in at the partner, daring him to contradict. I know that much. Damn sloppy then. Bono said, for God's sake, Stan, he's slashing her. What the hell do you expect? Mulder copied the slash marks onto the paper, turned and held it up. They started it, puzzled, then stared at him, Bonnell, in confusion, Newhouse with a disbelief. They had their lips poised for the laugh. He's writing his name, Mulder told them. He's letting you know who it is. He exhaled loudly, one piece at a time. The luncheonette was 2 blocks from FBI headquarters and now a corner shop with a long, Formica counter and a half-dozen window booths, most of the decor done in pale blues and white. The windows had been tinted to cut the sun's glare, but it still threatened Mulder with a drumming headache whenever he glanced out of the traffic. Once done with a sparing deal, he had grabbed his tie jacket and fled and started growling unmercifully, his head threatening to expand far beyond his limits. Even now, he could hear them arguing with each other and with him, telling him and each other Felsen was out of his freaking mind. Killers do not write their names on a victim's body, at least. They sure didn't do it in classical Greek. And they were finally, reluctantly accept it. They demanded to know who the killer was and why he did it. Mulder didn't get any answers and told them that more than once. When it finally sunk in, they stormed out as loudly as they stormed in, and he had stared at the door for nearly a full minute before deciding he'd better get out now before the echoes of a bickering gave him a splitting headache. The trouble was, stoic or not, the nattering and the heat had combined to kill his appetite. The burger and fries looked greasy enough to be delicious. But he couldn't bring himself to pick anything up, even for the taste. Dumb, perhaps, but still, he couldn't do it. A siren screamed. A police car raced down the centre of a crowded street. In the booth ahead of him, two couples chattered about baseball while at the same time they damned the heat wave that had been sitting on the Washington for nearly 2 weeks. On his right, on a large counter stool, an old man in a warm cardigan and golf cap listened to the portable radio. A talk show host wanted to know what the local government was going to do about the looming water shortage and constant brownouts. A handful were old enough to still want to blame the Russians, while Mulder's side will rub his eyes. In calmer times, it was nice to know his expertise was appreciated. In times like these, exasperated by the long prolonged heat, he wished the world would leave him the hell alone. He picked up the French fry and stared at it glumly. The radio announced a film festival on one of the cable channels. Old films from the 40s and 50s. Not at all a guarantee to be good, just fun. He grunted and popped a fry into his mouth. Oh, right, he thought. I can hole up at home with a regard for the while. He smiled to himself. The more he thought about, the more he liked the idea. In fact, he thought as he picked up the burger, he sounded like exactly what he needed. He was finished before he realised he had eaten a single bite, a good sign. He grinned more broadly when a woman slipped into the booth and stared in disgust at his plate. You know, his partner said, your arteries must be scientific wonder. He wished for the last fry, and Scully slapped a back of his hand. Take a break and listen where he wanted. She was near his age and shorter, her face slightly rounded. Light up, you Ilburn hair settling softly on her shoulders. More than once, an object of one of the manhunts had thought her too feminine to be obstacle. Not a single one of them had held that thought for very long. Mulder wiped his mouth with a napkin, the grin easing to a tentative smile. Wanted, Skinner, she told him. First thing in the morning, no excuse. The smile held, but there is something new in his eyes. Anticipation and a faint glimmer of excitement. Assistant Director Skinner asking for them now, while they were both in the midst of Kathlyn still depending, generally meant only one thing. Somewhere out there was the X-File rating. Maybe, she said. As if reading his mind, she snatched a last fry and bit it in half. An eyebrow lifted. Or maybe you're just in trouble again. Yep, the end. Okay, so we will stop on page 23. So we will take a break and then I will continue reading the X-Files Whirlwind on chapter 3. That's when Mulder and Scully will be investigation of about the victims and murderous killers on the next 3 chapters of the X-Files. It was inspired by extra-terrestrial and phenomenal classic American Fox science fiction TV show. Was created by Chris Carter. So thank you so much for listening to me when I read to you. So if you like the X-Files so much, so just let me know what's your favourite TV show, what's your favourite episode, what's your favourite season. So feel free to write comments down below and give thumbs up, and hopefully I will continue reading more chapters of the X-Files Whirlwind. So hope you have a nice day and please stay tuned and hope you see you soon.